You remember the show Sweetie Pies? Well, we now have one of those reality TV stars sentenced to life in prison for arranging for the murder of his nephew. Let's go ahead and jump into the final wrap up of this.
Yeah.
Out of the U.S. Attorney's Office, Eastern District of Missouri. Let me make this bigger so I can at least see what's going on. Reality show star sentenced to life in prison for arranging nephew's murder. If you've been following this, then this was just, I don't want to say the craziest thing in the world, but again, one of these family things. I've been talking about Alex Murdaugh. I mean, it's sort of like what's up with the family recently. St. Louis, a former reality show star, was sentenced to life in prison Thursday for arranging the murder of his nephew in St. Louis, Missouri in 2016 for money. Remember, that was what was going on with this. James Timothy Norman, 43, was found guilty by a jury in U.S. District Court in September of conspiracy to commit murder for hire, and conspiracy to commit mail and wire fraud in the fatal shooting of 20-year-old Andre Montgomery Jr. on March 14, 2016. Norman and Montgomery appeared on the reality show Welcome to Sweetie Pies. Norman took out a life insurance policy worth $450,000 on Montgomery, then arranged through intermediaries for his nephew's murder at 3964 Natural Bridge Avenue in St. Louis. It says here, Tim Norman sought to make $450,000 by having his nephew, Andre Montgomery, killed. Instead, he was caught and will spend the rest of his life in prison. Although Andre's family was robbed of their loved one, hopefully this result will provide some measure of peace and justice for them, said U.S. Attorney Sailor A. Fleming. Tim Norman portrayed one image to the public, but there were more sinister intentions lurking underneath, said U.S. Assistant Attorney Angie Danis during Thursday's sentencing hearing. This sounds so much like Alex Murdaugh. This one part, not the whole thing, but this, I'm going to portray one image to the public, but really in the background, here's what's going on. And the measure of someone's character is what they do when they think no one is watching. When he thought no one was watching, he planned the execution of his nephew and carried it out. 5 families, especially that of the victim, are suffering and irreparably harmed as a result of Norman's plot to have his own nephew murdered, said Special Agent in Charge Jay Greenberg of the FBI St. Louis Division. At least all his co-conspirators have accepted responsibility. To this day, Norman hasn't accepted responsibility, despite the fact 12 jurors unanimously convicted him after seeing and hearing 7 days of evidence in trial. U.S. District Judge John A. Ross sentenced the shooter, Travell Anthony Hill of St. Louis, to 32 years in prison in October. Hill, now 31, pleaded guilty to 1 count of conspiracy to commit murder for hire and 1 count of murder for hire, and admitted fatally shooting Montgomery with a .38 caliber handgun after being told of his location by a woman who knew both Montgomery and Norman. Hill was later paid $5,000. $5,000, and now he is spending 32 years in prison for that. The numbers just don't make sense here. The woman, Terica Tanisha Ellis, now 39, from Memphis, Tennessee, was sentenced to 3 years in prison in January. Ellis pleaded guilty to the murder for hire conspiracy charge and admitted that Norman paid her $10,000 to find Montgomery and pass on his location. Ellis admitted knowing Norman was going to take some form of action, but she did not know Montgomery would be shot. A 4th person, insurance agent Wally Yangnan, was sentenced to 3 years in prison in November. He pleaded guilty to a charge of wire and mail fraud conspiracy and admitted fraudulently helping Norman apply for multiple insurance policies beginning in October 2014. He then helped Norman file a claim on Montgomery's life insurance policy after Montgomery's death. The FBI and St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department investigated this case. Assistant U.S. Attorneys Angie Danis and Gwendolyn Carroll are prosecuting this case. And that was the update as of March 2nd, 2023. So again, it's this idea of like in the Alex Murdaugh case, and family members, the people who are supposed to be the ones who have your back, Although, people sometimes say family be the ones, though, right? They're the ones who are supposed to have your back. They're supposed to be the ones that you can go to in your time of need and time of trouble. And yet we have these instances where people are out in the world portraying one image, looking a certain way, trying to come across as successful and a community person. We have this family business and family restaurant, and in the case of Alec Murdaugh, this family legacy of public service. But behind the scenes, in his case, you had drugs going on. And here you have murder for hire, trying to get money from an insurance policy. And then, of course, the person who committed that crime, the amount of money that you're paid to now give up your life and take the life of someone else, it does not make sense. It literally does not make sense to me. But this should bring you up to speed. Life sentence in this case, just coming down, just getting the press release and reading this from the Department of Justice. So I hope this brings you up to speed with this newly released information. And don't forget to subscribe. Peace.